the past 30 years, Shanghai has transformed from a nondescript industrial fishing town to the dragon's head of global capital in East Asia. Its towering skyline will soon include the world's second tallest building, a $3 billion project. This city of 23 million is amidst a distinctly turn-of-the-century renaissance. But who is responsible for erecting these temples of trade? Migrants, often from rural areas, have been the essential source of cheap labor in China's globalization project. Since 1979, when the Communist Party began liberalizing market regulations, 160 million people have moved from rural to urban locales in China. Migrants come to cities like Shanghai in search of better wages and the elusive dream of upwards mobility. One of the few studies done of migrant workers in China found that their urban wages were 60% higher than what they had earned in their home provinces. Even with this bump, migrants still earn 40% less than those who were born in the city. More than 39% of Shanghai's residents are rural migrant workers seeking better opportunities than exist at home. These workers are the drivers of the city's growth, yet often live in the poorest conditions, but not by choice. Hukou, or household registration, is a system established under Mao's regime to categorize citizens as a method of taxation and social control. The system has been modified numerous times since its inception, but one constant has been the urban-rural divide. Urban residents receive the vast social services provided by Chinese cities, whereas rural residents are presumed to be more self-sufficient. Since 1978, laws have prohibited rural residents from re-registering in urban areas, which means they cannot buy formal homes or receive social services. Although Hukou has been contentious for many years, it re-entered public consciousness in this decade due to the increasing number of left-behind children. Traditionally, children have been left behind when their parents have moved without them to urban areas. Now, many families move to cities together, but children are denied entrance into public schools because they are not registered as official residents. In this brief video essay, I explore what it means to be one of those children, the changes that are taking place in the Hukou system, and how it affects the concept of citizenship in China. This is Climbing the Wall, Hukou's impact on Chinese children. According to China's own government, there are 61 million children who have at least one parent who has moved to a city in search of better work. These children usually only get to see these parents once a year during the Lunar New Year. But, as the Center for Child Rights and Corporate Social Responsibility reports, these children are frequently abused by their caregivers and are more likely to be accused of crime than children in full families. As a salve to these social ills, the Chinese government has begun tracking migrant workers' trips home and encouraging them to make video calls on a regular basis to talk to their children. In an even more radical position shift, the Chinese government has recommended that families bring their children to cities to live with them. But this simply delays the problems of Hukou's educational inequalities while creating a more unstable learning environment for Chinese children. Rob Schmitz, Marketplace's China correspondent, explains.
Many children who are born in these larger cities where their parents have moved to, this is their hometown as far as they know it. They grew up in Shanghai, for example. And as far as they're concerned, they're local citizens. But once they turn a certain age, if they want to go to college someday, they're going to have to move to where their household registration is, which means to where their parents are from.
Schmitz goes on to report that children who return to their parents' home province for high school are more likely to drop out and experience emotional hardship. But these inequalities begin existing even in primary school. Migrant children are not able to enroll in state-sponsored schools and instead attend schools which are financed through a combination of donations from the state and fees paid by parents. These schools are regularly cleared for development, meaning that migrant children are often changing schools in the middle of the year. Shanghai's race to create megastructures which house firms who generate globally acknowledged prosperity and opportunity for China's economy happens at the expense of migrant citizens, who become merely an exploitable source for labor. Parents move their families to cities in hope of the better life they believe that can be achieved in the city, but are faced with systemic obstacles via the Hukou system that relegates them to second-class citizenship. These families may have the right to be in Shanghai, but have no substantive rights to the city, meaning no chance for public education, social services, or even a better future for their children. There is, however, a glimmer of hope in tearing down this border between the two classes of citizens in Shanghai via digital engagement. In 2012, 15-year-old Jen Haitao started a microblog about her fears of returning to a rural province for high school even though she had never lived there. Her blog resonated with many families who had faced the same harrowing choice and led to a nationwide petitioning of the government to change the system. She herself was interviewed by state media, calling out Hukou's crisis and creating left-behind children.
This restriction forces people to make the choice between their situation and their studies. Someone can choose to send their child back home to be a left-behind child. This is the reason why children are left behind in China.
While there was no direct response to the protests, the Minister of Education told provinces to improve the Hukou system, and in 2014, the national system was reformed to allow for migrants to apply for registration in urban areas by meeting a series of requirements, such as proof of a minimum of 7 years residency in the city. Although this new system disadvantages adults with no formal education, it is a step in the right direction toward providing equal provisions of citizenship in the prospering global city of Shanghai.